Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 2711 Board 1. Inside the main control room of the Dreamer, Luke Heron looked at the dense reds on the screen and curled her lip in disdain. Her fingers danced lightly across the control panel, as if playing a symphony of slaughter. Since you're so eager to die, then so be it. Sand Raider machines deploy. With a hiss of air being released as the hydraulic hatches opened, the launch ports at the bottom of the warship opened instantly. 30 streaks of silver-gray light fell like meteors, crashing heavily onto the icy plain and stirring up a shower of ice shards. As the smoke cleared, 30 menacing killing machines were revealed. Those were Sand Raiders. They possess streamlined metallic bodies, with a faint blue glow shimmering at their limb joints. Each machine holds a crimson battle sword that emits a high-frequency vibration and buzzing sound in its body, and carries 2 plasma cannons on its shoulders that are capable of instantly melting tanks. Faced with the overwhelming army of rats, these 30 cold, steel creations did not hesitate and simultaneously activated their killing mode. Sizzle. Crimson sword light drew out deathly fan-shaped patterns across the icy plains. The hundreds of rats at the very front of the charge were instantly cut in half at the waist. The wounds were so smooth that they didn't even have time to bleed before being instantly carbonized by the high temperature. Immediately afterwards, the shoulder-mounted cannons fired in unison. The blue plasma clusters exploded among the rats, each explosion taking away dozens of lives. Limbs and severed arms flew everywhere, and the stench of burning flesh instantly overpowered the smell of blood. This is not war. This is a one-sided massacre. These 30 sand sweepers were like anteaters invading a swarm of ants, each charge carving a scarlet blank space in the rat tide. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The rats howled in terror, but driven by the spirit of bonsai, they had nowhere to retreat and could only desperately use their flesh and blood to crash into the indestructible alloy armor. But they seemed to have gone mad, even forgetting about death, and chose to charge forward with a mournful roar. His Majesty Gao Yukansi, Sun God, on board. The sand-sweeping machine indifferently swept over these rats. Combat power 200, combat power 30. How come there's a weakling with a combat power of only 5? The mechanical life forms were utterly bewildered. No matter how many of these insects died, it would hardly deplete their resources. They don't understand the meaning behind doing this. But that's not something they need to worry about. What they need to do is get rid of the pests. The lightsaber swept across, sending shockwaves rippled outwards. The Sand Raider, with combat power comparable to a tank-level alien machine, slaughtered these mutated rats as easily as breathing. Like autumn leaves swept away by the wind, large swarms of the mutated rats were instantly shattered by the shockwave as they charged forward. Puffed, puffed, puffed. Everywhere was a mist of broken blood, staining the battlefield a magnificent rose red. However, just as the army of Bakura was about to collapse, a thick, impenetrable black mist suddenly emerged from the deepest part of the Gaoyuan ruins. The black mist, carrying a biting chill and a nauseating stench of decay, rapidly spread across the land, actually halting the advance of the Sand Raiders. Within the swirling black mist, countless shadowy figures began to appear. There was a gigantic, one-eyed monk with a single eye like a lantern. There was a long-necked, fierce-looking flying-headed barbarian. And there was a black and blue demon warrior wielding a white bone wolf club. This is the Zeepin clan's deepest hidden trump card, the 100 Demons Night Parade Legion. These methods of storing images appeared when Zhang Yi and his group first set foot on the Japanese archipelago. However, what has appeared now is their true form, which is more powerful and more dangerous. But then again, how can Zhang Yi and his team be compared to those of the past? At the forefront of the black mist, 3 terrifying auras surged forth. The man in the center was an old man with a huge head and a sinister smile on his face, He was none other than the slippery ghost. His figure was elusive, as if he had merged with the surrounding black mist. On the other side was a 5-meter-tall, muscular, half-wolf, half-monster, Inagami. The giant blade in his hand was still dripping with an unknown slime. On the other side was an arrogant figure with wings on his back, holding a round fan, and wearing a long red mask with a large nose. The great dog. He hovered in midair, and the surrounding wind and snow seemed to obey his commands. Invaders of Huashu Kingdom, cease your arrogance. This place will be the place where your lives end. The big dog let out a sharp howl and suddenly swung the fan in its mouth. Boom! A tornado streaked out with black wind blades, instantly eclipsing the surrounding area. A storm descended from the desert, covering an area of tens of kilometers and instantly engulfing the two sand sweepers. The hard alloy armor, under the cutting of the wind blades, emitted a friction sound that made one's blood tingle, and actually cracks appeared. Seeing their own strongman appear, the previously scattered rats let out excited shrieks again. On board! On board! However, this excitement lasted for less than a second. Ha ha ha. Good. Finally, a few bastards have arrived. My big axe has been itching to get going for a long time. A loud, boisterous laugh came from the battlefield, drowning out the clamor of the battlefield. From the open hatch of the Dreamer, a figure leaped down like a meteorite, then crashed onto the ground with a loud boom. That's Uncle Yu. At this moment, he was completely covered in the demon god armor that Liu Karen had carefully modified, and it was an improved version of the Termination demon god armor that Zhang Yi had worn before. The dark red heavy armor is 10 centimeters thick, with crimson energy circuits engraved on its surface, and a blazing tail flame shoots out from its back. In his hand, he tightly gripped the massive double-edged battle axe, capable of splitting mountains and shattering rocks, with red energy flowing around its blade. Thump! Uncle Yu smashed into the center of the battlefield with an extremely violent gesture, and the huge shockwave directly turned hundreds of rats around him into mincemeat. The earth seemed to tremble for a moment. The moment Big Dog saw Uncle Yu, his heart sank. He sensed a strong sense of danger. This is unusual, because in their understanding, the only thing Huashu Kingdom is worth being wary of is the Chaos Alien, that's Ishikiwarashi, and Hutu, who cannot leave the local area, is only half a threat. And where did this guy come from? Where did this bird come from? Get down here. Uncle Yu didn't waste any words. The moment he landed, the boosters beneath his feet went into full power. The entire creature transformed into a red afterimage, ignoring the incoming wind blades, and charged directly towards the giant dog in midair. The big dog's expression changed drastically. He hadn't expected that this monster would dare to confront his divine wind head-on. Chapter 27:12 Board 2. The great Tengu hurriedly waved his fan, trying to create more wind walls to block the wind. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Huge walls of wind descended from the sky, forming transparent barriers around Uncle. The powerful wind pressure turned the surrounding area into a vacuum, and the wind walls crashed towards Uncle. But things are different now. Now, after being tempered in the interstellar battlefield and with the support of Zhang Yi's abundant resources, Uncle S' overall combat strength has already exceeded 40,000 points. After all, the activation of the End Demon armor alone is equivalent to a superintelligent mechanical life form with a combat power of over 30,000. Break it for me. With a roar, the old man cleaved through the wind wall with his battle axe, which crackled with immense force. The nuclear furnace roared to life, and crimson energy gathered on the battle axe, then cleaved through the axe blade with a massive beam of crimson light. Tear. That legendary fan, capable of blowing away mountains, was as fragile as a withered branch in front of the battle axe, and was instantly split in two. The axe blade, its momentum undiminished, slammed down hard on Otengu's shoulder. Ah! The great Tengu let out a shrill scream as half of its wing and arm were severed, and blood rained down. His once magnificent body was smashed into the ice on the ground like a rag doll. No way. Uchiha Tengu, have lived a life of unparalleled glory, yet I've come to this end. Pfft. Is that all you've got? Not even enough to warm me up. Uncle spit out a mouthful of saliva, brandishing his battle axe, standing like a war god in front of the 100 Demons Night Parade Legion. Those ghosts who had been pretending to be supernatural and looked terrifying were now completely dumbfounded. They'd only been on the scene for less than a minute, and one of the giants was already dead with a single axe strike. No, you need to hold out for at least a while. How are we supposed to fight like this? At the same time, several more figures leaped down from the warship. I really don't want to come down from this dirty place. Although Fatty Sue complained, he was surprisingly fast at moving. As soon as he landed, he slammed his palms down on the ground. Watch me freeze you all into popsicles. Extreme cold domain. Ice burial. In an instant, the temperature of the already cold ice field plummeted. Countless sharp ice spikes grew wildly from the ground, like blooming death lotuses. Hundreds of monsters that had just charged forward were instantly pierced by ice spikes and frozen into crystal-clear ice sculptures. It really is too ugly. It looks much better when it's frozen. Fatty Sue clapped his hands, looking smug. On the other side, a ghostly black figure moved across the battlefield. Liangyu is ruthless and doesn't talk much. She drew her sword and started slashing the moment she stepped in. The Tang sword in his hand had already transformed into an indistinct curtain of blades. She didn't use any fancy special moves, only extreme speed and extreme accuracy. With each slash, a high-ranking demon was decapitated. Her eyes were cold and clear. On this battlefield where 100 demons danced, she seemed to be performing a solo dance, elegant yet deadly. Li Yangyang transformed into two bodies, one of the Yin and one of the Sun. Although her combat power was slightly weaker, her combat skills were extremely high. She cooperated with the other people to surround and kill the 100 Ghosts Night Parade Legion. Faced with this group of human powerhouses possessing the strength of a cult leader, the 100 Demons Night Parade Legion, which had once given Zhang Yi and his group a great headache, now appeared so fragile and helpless. This is not a battle of equal strength. It is clearly a one-sided massacre. Nurera Hyon and Inagami leaped forward, trying to stabilize the situation. Before Nurera Hyon could even sheath his short sword, his left arm, which was holding the sword, was severed from his shoulder by a dazzling flash of light. Inagami's head was pinned down by the old man and slammed onto the ground, cracking his head open. They are no longer on the same level of civilization. Seeing that the battle below was settled, Zhang Yi, who had been standing on the bridge, slowly withdrew his gaze. Xin, Rand, I'll leave this to you guys. I'll handle the big guy and their family. With Zhang Yi having already eliminated 2 of the members of the Miyu family, it's time to clean up the last one, Takamiyasu Higami. After all, a family should be together all the time, Zhang Yi said calmly. The next moment, ripples appeared in the space in front of him. The boundless realm spread, and his figure instantly vanished from the spot. When he reappeared, he was already standing on the broken temple in Takamagara. The cold wind howled, and the oppressive atmosphere of war made the world even colder. Zhang Yi stood with his hands hanging down in the sky, coldly looking down at the powerful rat-turned-rat clan member in front of him who was on the verge of collapse. Gaoya Shengxi, Sun God. Zhang Yi's voice wasn't loud, but it clearly reached the other person's ears. You look much older than I've seen in years. What, after those 2 old guys died, you were in such a hurry to go down and join them? Gao Yusansu Himikami stared intently at Zhang Yi, who had suddenly appeared. He could sense the unfathomable aura emanating from the other person, as deep and unfathomable as an abyss. That was not the aura of an ordinary person. It was the power of a god or demon who had truly experienced the baptism of the starry sky and slaughtered the strongest of all races. The lifespan of the rat clan is not very long, but upon reaching Epsilon, all life forms will undergo a leap in life level, gaining a much longer lifespan. Like the Ogami family of the swamp country, they are all ancient monsters who have lived for hundreds of years. In their timeline, Zhang Yi is seen as a monster. Yesterday's frail little beast has become an unparalleled monster. Zhang Yi. Chaos. Takamiyasu Sukijin gritted her teeth as she pronounced the name, each syllable sounding as if it were squeezed out from between her teeth. You actually came back alive. Not only did you come back, but you also destroyed my clan's foundation and killed my people. These are all at the price. Zhang Yi remained calm, as if stating a simple truth. From the moment your Zepin clan decided to collude with the other 4 major clans in an attempt to murder me in space, your fate was sealed. I have come today to utterly destroy your entire Zepin kingdom, to wipe this place off the map of Earth. Erase? Haha, what a boastful tone. Takamiyasu Hyjin suddenly threw her head back and laughed wildly, her laughter filled with madness and resentment. He suddenly ripped off the straw hat from his head, and his sacred hunting robe was instantly torn apart. Tear. Beneath those tattered clothes, what was revealed was no longer a human body, but an incredibly ugly, enormous, and ferocious rat's head. Its head was covered with fleshy growths and black bristles, emitting a nauseating, fishy stench. He slowly drew a black long sword from his waist. The moment the sword was sheathed, the temperature in the entire Takamagara seemed to drop several degrees. Chapter 27:13 Kusanagi, Sword 1. The sword of Takamiyasu Sumihiko, ancient and simple. The blade was jet black, with no reflection. Instead, it seemed to absorb light. An incredibly strong stench of blood emanated from the blade, as if countless wronged souls were howling and roaring on its edge. Zhang Yi frowned slightly. I sensed an extremely unsettling resentment emanating from that knife. It was no ordinary iron, nor even a common weapon. It had a fishy stench that made you want to vomit after just one look. It wasn't something you could smell with your nose. It was something you could feel with your very soul. This wasn't the first time Zhang Yi had seen something like this. The Eternal Gate, constructed from the flesh and blood of 100,000 living beings, in the Demon Kingdom of Northwest Korea, or even the Vajra, the weapon of the Burial Lord, were all made in this way. The strongest existence is that which possesses the power of ether. Any material or weapon made by humans is utterly vulnerable before ether. The stronger the concentrated intention, the greater the weapon's power. And the strongest intention is resentment. The knife in his hand made Zhang Yi feel nauseous and wanted to vomit. It was hard to imagine how many lives it had killed. This is the supreme divine weapon of the land of the marshland, the Kusanagi sword. Takamiyasu Sumihiko gripped the sword with both hands, blood and tears streaming from her murky, rat-like eyes. It is a demonic blade forged with the blood of billions of lives. It is the collective resentment of all the lives slaughtered on this island over the past 1,000 years. It belongs to the enemy, and it belongs to us. Today, I will use this sword to kill you. Chaos. Do you think you can win the hearts of 10,000 people with the heart of one person? Roar. With a roar that sounded inhuman, Takamiyasu Hikami's body began to swell violently. The bones of the creature crackled and popped, and white fur grew wildly. In just a few seconds, transformed from a hunched old man into a terrifying behemoth tens of meters tall. The monster's body was as robust as an ancient hyena, with bulging muscles and an explosive power. But its head still retained the characteristics of a rat, with corrosive saliva dripping from its blood-red mouth. It stood upright like a human, tightly gripping the enormous black Kusanagi sword in its hand, like a demon god crawling out of hell. Zhang Yi, do you think you've already won? The voice of Takamiyasu Hikami, transformed into a giant beast, roared like thunder, causing the surrounding ruins to shatter. I've been waiting for this day for a long time. To deal with your bizarre time-controlling power, I've prepared a special, deadly gift for you. Before she could finish speaking, the Kusanagi sword in her hand plunged into the ground beneath her feet. Lin Bingdo Zhejiazhan Lai Qian. Activate the formation. Boundless rebirth. Rumble. The entire Takamagara region began to shake violently. Zhang Yi's eyes narrowed. All around the ruins, one after another, huge red torii gates rose up, without warning. Each of these torii gates is over 100 meters tall, made of an unknown red metal, and covered with strange runes. And between these torii gates, countless thick shimenawa, hemp ropes commonly found in Japanese shrines, appear out of thin air. They were like living beings, intertwining and entwining in the air, instantly sealing off every corner of the sky. An indescribable sense of oppression descended upon me instantly. Zhang Yi's expression changed slightly. He felt as if his body had been filled with mercury, becoming incredibly heavy. Even breathing became difficult, and my heart felt like it was being gripped tightly by an invisible hand. I don't want to die. Don't kill me. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. Please have mercy on me. I hate it. I hate it so much. I want revenge. I want revenge. That was the strongest resentment of billions of living beings under the Kusanagi sword. When the Kusanagi sword was unsheathed, the resentment began to invade Zhang Yi's mind. What alarmed me even more was that the spatial anomaly that I was so proud of had become blocked. Can you feel it? This suffocating pain. Takamiyasu drew his Kusanagi sword, the tip pointing directly at Zhang Yi, a cruel and triumphant grin spreading across his giant rat-like face. This is a terrifying killing formation left behind by the Star Clan, the Limitless Rebirth formation. It wasn't used on you 3 years ago, but today, you've finally fallen into it. This is a force field composed of pure resentment. Within this field, all spatial laws will be distorted and suppressed. This place is a concentration of the despair and resentment of billions of lives before their deaths. It will stick to your mind like glue and lock you in your senses. The air became thick and blood-red, and countless unseen vengeful spirits whispered and screamed in Zhang Yi's ear. Zhang Yi attempted to unleash his own boundless domain, only to be shocked to discover that the domain that could easily cover the entire Takamagara was now being suppressed by that terrifying power of resentment. That invisible barrier was constantly shrinking inward, and was eventually compressed to a mere 1-kilometer radius centered on it. Within this distance, is your teleportation still as effortless? Is your secondary gate still open? With a maniacal laugh, Takamiyasu Higanbana's massive body leaped off the ground, dragging the Kusanagi sword that exuded an aura of destruction, and slashed fiercely at Zhang Yi, who was trapped in the center of the formation. The gate of the next gate? A barely perceptible smile curved the corners of Zhang Yi's lips. That was a long time ago. In order to deal with, the Kingdom of Zepin made ample preparations when 3 returned from Mars. Unfortunately, in the span of 3 months, everything changed. If you continue to view things with outdated perspectives, you'll suffer the consequences. Die shield. The howling wind whipped up ice crystals and ash, turning the ruins of Takamagara into a post-apocalyptic landscape. At the center of that shattered geom, 2 terrifying energy fields, powerful enough to distort the laws of physics, are colliding wildly. The air within a radius of tens of kilometers was completely sucked out, creating a huge, lifeless vacuum. The form that Takamiyasu Higanbana is in at this moment is the most blasphemous desecration of the word sacred, yet it is also the ultimate embodiment of violent aesthetics. The 80-meter-tall demon god stood atop the shattered Goryo, its entire body covered in white mane, each hair seemingly drawn from ultra-high-strength alloy, gleaming with a chilling light in the dim light of the day. On that giant head, which retained the features of a rat, its eyes were bloodshot, like a churning sea of blood. Its breath fell onto the rock, instantly corroding it into pus that emitted black smoke. In S hand, the Kusanagi sword, amplified countless times, was now like a black dragon that had come to life. Chapter 27:14 Kusanagi, Sword 2. Visible black mist of resentment swirled around the blade of the Kusanagi sword. The black mist kept changing into distorted human faces. Old people, women and children, soldiers. They screamed silently, each wriggling sounding like glass shattering under their strain. Chaos. The roar of Takamiyasu Higami no longer traveled through the air, but instead bombarded Zhang Yi's mind directly with a mental shockwave. That voice was a mixture of arrogance accumulated over 1,000 years and madness driven to desperation. "You've forced me to reveal the true form of the Calamity God. You have every reason to be proud. But this is the end." At this distance, the sealing law of the Kusanagi sword is the absolute truth. Without any fancy movements, Takamiyasu Sumihiko's arm muscles bulged, and his veins, as thick as mountains, surged with boiling divine blood. He raised the Kusanagi sword high and unleashed a devastating strike at the tiny Zhang. This sword strike, though simple and unassuming, carries immense weight. Before the sword even arrives, the earth crumbles. With a sickening cracking sound, the ground beneath Zhang Yi's feet collapsed instantly. A bottomless crack spread wildly from beneath Zhang Yi's feet, reaching all the way to the coastline, as if the entire Japanese archipelago had been cleaved in two by this sword. Seawater surged back, lava erupted, and crimson and deep blue hues intertwined with the destructive black sword of death, creating an apocalyptic oil painting. However, Zhang Yi, who was at the very center of the storm, still had his hands in the white pockets of his shirt. He didn't even bother to draw his sword, merely watching indifferently as Takamiyasu Sumihiko went hysterical. He slightly raised his head, his wispy hair flying wildly across his forehead, revealing his deep, icy eyes. Faced with a blow that could destroy a city, his eyes showed no fear, only a chilling indifference. "Absolute truth? You know nothing about power, and you know even less about me. Do you still think that things are the same as they were 3 years ago?" Zhang Yi whispered. The next instant, a black mountain of swords crashed down. Just as the Kusanagi sword was about to touch Zhang Yi's head, a thin, translucent spatial membrane, shimmering with a faint silver-gray light, silently appeared. Taishu bathrobe, absolute boundary. Buzz. This impact was no longer the clang of metal, but the roar of 2 asteroids colliding in near-Earth orbit. A terrifying shockwave spread wildly outwards in a ring shape from the 2 people as the center. All buildings within a 5-kilometer radius, whether ancient shrine torii gates or the sturdy ruins of the Mogeo Tower, were as fragile as sandcastles before the shockwave, instantly crushed into dust and turned into a vast cloud of dust. Time seemed to stand still at this moment. Takamiyasu Sumihiko's ferocious smile froze on his face. He felt that this sword strike had not only slashed at a human being, but had also slashed at an insurmountable wall of the universe. The invincible sharpness of the Kusanagi sword and the resentment that could corrode the soul were all swallowed up by a strange force the moment they touched that silver membrane, disappearing without a trace. "Is this your full strength?" Zhang Yi's voice rang out clearly through the swirling smoke and dust, carrying a hint of linger. "The pressure is all right. It'll barely iron this yukata and smooth out the wrinkles." Zhang Yi slowly extended a finger and gently pressed it against the enormous black sword blade. At that moment, his tiny body seemed to contain the immense power to support the earth. "Roll." As he uttered that word, the space at Zhang Yi's fingertips suddenly exploded. That extreme compression and rebound of space. Collapse. The Kusanagi sword, which was originally in a downward position, was actually bounced up by this incredible counterforce. Takamiyasu Sumihiko felt a sharp pain in both arms, and the tiger's mouth split open, with tons of divine blood raining down like a torrential downpour. His massive 8-meter frame lost its balance and staggered backward, each step leaving a huge crater in the ground. "No, this is absolutely not allowed." Takamiyasu Sumihiko steadied himself, and the shock in his eyes quickly turned into a brutal killing intent. The Kusanagi sword's ability to seal away other things should have made your spatial defense effective. A frog in a well. Zhang Yi dusted off the non-existent dust from his shoulders, then floated up to face the giant beast. "You think you've sealed away the techniques or the Tao. My spatial power is no longer a simple alien, but rather a rule. That power connects to the netherworld, devouring all things. Opening the gate to the netherworld requires no effort from Zhang Yi." The humiliation and anger completely ignited Takamiyasu Hikami's reason. He was shocked because Zhang Yi's power was completely different from before. But now, he had no choice but to fight to the death. He let out a roar that shattered the heavens and plunged the Kusanagi sword in his hand into the earth. Fine. What a great rule. Then I'll show you what a god's domain is. Spider Nest City. Buzz. A strange, high-frequency vibration instantly enveloped the entire battlefield. Zhang Yi sensed that the originally empty space had suddenly become incredibly crowded. Countless spatial spider silks, emitting a faint purple light, visible only to the high god of the sun, instantly wove together a giant net covering the entire earth. These spider silks are not physical entities, but rather cracks in space. They are incredibly sharp and connect to countless spatial nodes. Oh ho! Spatial power. Zhang Yi raised the corners of his mouth in a half-smile. Is this something you prepare to deal with me? What do you mean? Chaos. In my spider nest city, distance is meaningless. And there's no speed limit either. The figure of Takamiyasu Hikami suddenly became blurry. Not because he moves too fast, but because he performs hundreds of ultra-high-frequency spatial jumps per second. Swish, 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 swish. Thousands upon thousands of afterimages of the Takamiyasu sun god appeared in the sky. Each afterimage maintained an unpredictable attack posture, slashing, thrusting, biting, stomping. At that moment, it seemed as if countless demons were launching an attack on Zhang Yi. Die, die, die. Zhang Yi's pupils contracted slightly. Fast, too fast. Even with his spatial awareness, he found the intense onslaught quite interesting. Sizzle. A blur flashed by, and the tip of the Kusanagi sword actually cut a ripple on Zhang Yi's Taishu bathrobe. Then came the third and fourth roads. Although each attack was blocked, the combined force of the massive impacts made Zhang Yi feel like a baseball being relentlessly batted, the air whirling left and right, with only a black streak of light and a dense net of blades visible.
Tell me in the comments which part you enjoyed the most. If you love manga style stories, don't forget to like the video and subscribe the Buzz Play Manga. See you in the next chapter with more surprises. Thank you.